Welcome to Hero Club.
I'm Nick Williams.
And I'm George Primavera.
George and I started playing Dungeons & Dragons with our buddies in college, and we haven't stopped since. Even when we lived on opposite coasts, I would Skype in George on the TV in the living room of my apartment,
while I would DM from the floor of my bathroom so as not to wake up my roommate. When I finally came out to Los Angeles, we started playing with our friends right away.
And when we'd inevitably tell other people about the ultimate betrayals and daring heroics that happened in our games, we realized that they were just hearing a jumbled mess instead of the cinematic blockbuster memories that were in our heads. We wanted to show people how fun and immersive D&D can be, especially those who had never played.
And to do that, we record a full game like normal around the table and then painstakingly cut it down from 4 hours to a clean, math-free episode, so you can experience our memories the way we do.
Just like in a real game, nothing is ever written or planned out ahead of time with the players. The only things we add are music and sound effects.
I am the Dungeon Master. I build the world and the framework for an adventure. The players, like Nick, must then journey through the obstacles I set before them, rolling a 20-sided die and adding character-specific bonuses to see if they succeed. If they beat the number I have in my head, then their action is successful. If not, it is a failure, and there may be consequences. We try to follow the rules of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as close as we can, but as the Dungeon Master, what I say goes, and there are some things I like to do differently.
Each season is its own contained story, so find one that sounds interesting to you and start from the top. And hey,
welcome to the club. Hero Club presents Brand's Bargain. Chapter 7. The Dread Crab.
I've a proposition for ye creatures on my killing floor, whose bones would soothe my children as they teethe. Ye can keep this grave to dig, or ye can join my hempen jig, where you'll be legendary ere ye live to breathe. So sails up, tails high, get down and let fly, legendary ere we live to breathe. And when a beast my ship becomes, when rogue waves soak the powder bombs, and ye can't find a weapon to unsheath, ye dash their brains upon the rocks, and tow what's left back to my docks, where you'll be legendary ere ye live to breathe. So sails up, tails high, get down and let fly, legendary ere we live to breathe. Creatures, when ye meet the queen, the raven one is what I mean. Tell that tramp ye still can't leave. Lose your class and lose your name, lose your treasure and lose your game. But you'll be legendary from the ocean to the aviary. Sails up, tails high, get down and let fly, legendary ere we live to breathe. Sails up, tails high, monster storm, look 'em in the eye. We're legendary ere we live to breathe. Even Gills had better heed. Sails up, tails high, get down and let fly, legendary ere we live to breathe. Sails up, tails high, get down and let fly, legendary ere we live to breathe.
Brand desecrating the sacred pool really knocked Feathergill for a loop. So much so that the good captain figured she was broken for good and uttered her word of death. Unfortunately for him, Tibby had already sorted that, and all he did by saying that word was unleash hell.
In the instant after the word of death is spoken, everyone straightens. Fur and feather bristle, and senses heighten, as the ghostly boat floats atop the opaque black sludge in the desecrated sanctuary of Loon, The first to react is Celestyna, as she sees Tibby begin to sprint towards Captain Brand. It unfolds before her in slow motion.
Celestyna staggers backwards as visions of her village and her family and even the lives of the undead crew flash through her mind. The energy from the magical water she drank courses through her, and she can feel new power within her. Her eyes glow a silvery blue, and she readies a newfound power should Brand try to speak again.
Wayland Brand's wild, bloodshot eyes are trained on Tibby. If any of you think of doing anything but helping or standing aside, I will say a word. Brand readies himself to say a single word, if any of those conditions are met.
After hearing Brand's warning, Tibby's black eyes sparkle. The grin on her mouth deepens. The wings on her back unfurl as she flies towards Brand, her mouth unhinging at the jaw, preparing to make a fire breath attack.
Bright pink fire begins to glow from within Tibby's translucent body.
Brand coldly turns towards Celestyna and begins to say the word.
But the word never leaves his lips because just as he is about to finish, Celestyna takes her readied action, her eyes glowing a silvery blue, as she whispers, "Chisa," and a giant sphere of silence encases Brand.
Pale silvery light fills the center of the boat, creating a sort of misty fog along the ghostly green surface. And within this fog, there is no sound. As Celestyna harnesses Loon's power, the halved monument floating in the black sludge weakly glows.
As Tibby approaches Brand, pink flames fill her maw and then shoot forward, hoping to engulf him.
Brand disappears in a muted mote of flame. But as the fire dissipates, Brand stands up. Having perfectly ducked down in time to avoid the spraying of fire, he takes 0 damage.
The fury inside her gives her the energy to attack again. Surging forward, she makes 3 attacks with her sword. 29, 18.
2 hits, 1 miss. Roll your damage.
20 damage.
Feeling the heavy silence around him, Flintbeak takes off towards the edge of the boat, trying to find sound again. All right now. Skidding to a stop, electricity sparks up around the boat against him and moves from Flintbeak towards Brand. As the electricity circles around his feet, it begins to levitate Brand into the air.
Brand fights off the levitating effect, steadying himself on the railing of the boat through sheer force of will, keeping himself firmly planted on the deck.
As the electricity continues to crackle around him, Flintbeak seems to wince as the electrical blood curse within him activates.
The electricity arcs around Brand's form, but even staring at all of you exhausted and silenced, he only barely winces and seems unfettered by the binding electricity.
Salt my salt and beak! Realizing the source of the silence, Flintbeak doubles back, taking to the air and attempting to put himself between Brand and Celestyna, providing her some cover.
The sound disappears once again. Snag, standing at the helm of this longship, is just at the border's edge of the aura of silence. His father stands behind him outside the barrier, staring at him with glee in his eyes.
Whether driven by some altruism or completely selfish motivations, Snag doesn't even know. But as he sees his fellow prisoners engage with Brand, he grits his teeth and follows suit. He takes 1 step back out of the silent circle, brings up his fingers laced with long strands of shells, and shakes them in front of his face. And as he does, 5 watery tentacles explode from his back, undulating behind him, before 2 of them whip out at Brand, attempting to grapple him.
Brand immediately turns, repelling both watery tentacles that whip out from Snag's form and attempt to grab him.
Assault my Bahuchi!
You got to be saltin' kidding me!
Still with the silvery glow in her eye and the silence barrier upheld, Celestyna focuses on Brand and attempts to harpoon him in the chest. 11.
Brand parries this attack as the harpoon juts out from under Flintbeak's armpit.
26.
That is a hit.
On her second try, Celestyna skewers Brand through the thigh and carries through into the wood of the deck, grappling him.
Brand's move speed is reduced to 0.
11 damage.
All of the ghostly pirates have backed up to the edge, observing in bemusement.
Brand, dazed, mad, crazed, attempts to dislodge the spear from himself.
Captain Brand will make an athletics check to try to break the grapple, while Celestyna will make an athletics check to try to keep him in place.
20.
Brand, with a muted squelch, pulls the harpoon from his leg and is no longer grappled.
Brand weakly and slowly attempts to get out of the sphere of silence.
As Brand pulls away from Tibby, Tibby will make an opportunity attack.
19.
Miss. Brand parries that blow, and just as he is about to turn to leave, the harpoon that he had previously dislodged fires out again as Celestyna is also able to make an opportunity attack.
16.
And Brand effectively dodges the piercing harpoon.
Snag sees Brand trying to dash away, and his eyes pulse in turquoise light, intruding on his thoughts and attempting to make him disengage instead. Yourself instead. Save your own hide.
Brand will make a wisdom saving throw.
Brand hobbles forward and reaches out to Snag to steady himself. His eyes then flash up, looking directly into Snag's face.
Snag's courage crumbles as he sees Brand shirk off his attempt to slow him down. No. You don't have to take out old Snag. It can still be so useful to you.
Undertow.
Snag turns and begins walking towards his father.
And is met with a horrifying, ghostly smile. And he points to your feet, which have already begun to light with radiant energy.
Look at you, Junior.
Snag's father, laughing maniacally, fades away.
Snag looks down at his feet, understands what's happening, and almost in a daze, looks across the boat towards Merdina.
Merdina twitches and then seems to curdle, as if moving quickly through time and decaying, and then is ash that blows away.
Good night, Merdina, ye bonny lass. And Snag falls into ash along with her.
Son! No, what have you done? You son of a rogue.
As Snag disappears, there is suddenly a loud, resounding crack and a groan, and the ship begins to slowly sparkle, little pixelated bits of dust shooting towards the open flask that has fallen where Snag once stood.
Having seen Snag disappear into nothing, Tibby cannot stop laughing. Feeling crazed, Tibby takes flight and launches her full weight into Brand, hoping to knock him off the ship.
Roll an athletics check.
24.
Brand collides with the surface of the black water, but does not sink below it yet. It seems to bend under his weight, almost like quicksand.
Tibby punches downward into Brand's body, trying to shove him deeper into the black sludge.
Tibby, roll an athletics check.
22.
As Tibby begins to try to push Brand beneath the surface of this sludge, he resists, and the two are locked in combat.
Why don't you just stay down? That's where everyone wants you.
Tibby goes to shove him one more time. 27.
And Brand disappears 5 feet down into the sludge. Tibby, as you hold Brand under, you begin to sink down as well. Make a strength saving throw.
9.
the black sludge begins to rise up around your boots, grappling you in place and pulling you down up to your hips into the sludge.
It tickles!
Attempting to shout through the silence, Flintbeak turns to Celestyna.
You got right off this boat!
Celestina, looking around wildly, sees Flintbeak and points to her ears and shakes her head. She then points to the blue glowing bottle on the boat.
Good enough for me.
With a beat of his wings, Flintbeak takes off towards the sinking Tibby, grabbing her by the shoulder and winking. I'm not losing another soldier today, love. And lightning steps out of the muck.
From beneath the sludge, Brand is racked with an electrical aura that pierces even this darkness. For just a moment, as the sludge sizzles and burns away, you see Brand's screaming face before the sludge once again engulfs him and covers him.
9 damage.
Celestina lets the spell of silence dissipate as she runs towards the little blue bottle on the deck. She grabs it and leaps off the boat onto the nearest shore.
Celestina, make an athletics check as you leap off the boat, which finishes disintegrating just as you kick off from it.
25.
Celestina impacts onto the shoreline, crawling back up with ease without touching the black liquid beneath her, and turns to see the rest of the boat suck inward to the bottle she is holding, topped by the ashes, whirling in the air around you that used to be Snag Taggish. The bottle corks itself magically, and all is eerily quiet. As the boat fully disappears from this desecrated holy site, they tensely watch as bubbles pop over where Captain Brand descended beneath the sludge. Captain Brand, make an athletics check with disadvantage. A hand emerges from beneath the sludge and places itself on the surface, trying to hoist itself up. Brand is clearly trying to emerge once more. Everybody make a perception check.
13.
22.
15.
Celestina's the only one who hears it. The bugs around you have stopped chirping. And then, at the very, very edges of your ability to hear, large, heavy impacts. Celestyna, you slowly turn around to see a flock of moths explode out from the trees. And then you see, just over the treetops, a lumbering black carapace, glistening in the sunlight.
I see you.
Tibby raises her arm and fires 3 eldritch blasts towards Brand's hand, sticking out of the sludge. 17, 28, 26.
1 miss, 2 hits. Roll damage.
19 damage. As the pink eldritch blasts of flame strike Brand's hand, Tibby focuses the magic downward in hopes that he sinks further.
Brand will make a strength saving throw at disadvantage. Tibby sees Brand's hands claw into the sludge, attempting to gain some traction to pull himself upward.
I like your thinking. I've heard more than enough out of him today. Flintbeak pushes off the banks, quickly flying across until he's right next to Celestyna. He lands at the edge of the muck, pulls Silverthorn, the spike-grip-handled pistol on his right hip, and as blood courses over its grip and lightning crackles in the air, aims and takes 2 shots at Brand. 21, 23.
Both bullets impact in the muck, but there is no reaction from Brand.
Lightning still coursing over them, Flintbeak attempts to bind Brand's hand once again with the blood coursing within his body.
Brand will make a strength save at disadvantage. You're unsure of the result.
As Flintbeak's lightning blood continues to spill onto his gun, he presses his fingers harder around the grip, amplifying the curse that now holds Brand, damaging himself in the process.
Flintbeak takes 6 damage as he boosts the electricity around Brand, whose hand is bound by pulses of static and freezes in place. Behind you, the dread crab, seeing the commotion from beyond the trees, roars and rapidly begins to splash towards you with thunderous impacts of its spiny black legs.
Celestyna turns toward the crab, bracing herself. A shock of silvery blue courses through her eyes again, and she whispers, "Ojec," commanding the crab to flee.
The crab pauses for a moment as the speech reverberates through the air, but does not seem to react to the spell, as it does not understand you.
Celestina sprints inland towards the other fork of the river. "That didn't work. Are you coming?"
Sure. Feathergill, I think we're making our way.
I'll be right with you.
Captain Brand, make a strength saving throw at disadvantage as your hand starts to dip below the black sludge. The hand does descend below the surface, but clenches into a fist suddenly as the electricity disperses, and Brand is out of sight.
You sure are a tough son of a roach, ain't you?
The enormous crab turns its body to watch Celestyna fleeing through the woods. Dark bubbles begin to gather up at its mouth, and a black ichor spear fires through the air towards her. But it impacts at your feet.
Seeing that Brand has fully submerged, Tibby thinks her job is done. She grins and laughs.
What's next?
Tibby turns her sight onto the gigantic crab above her. Her thoughts shift back to the glorious monarch butterfly and remembers how it was able to inflict great damage from the inside of the crab's mouth.
This should be fun.
Tibby flies towards the crab, aiming to land in its ginormous mouth.
The crab turns just in time to see Tibby rocketing towards it and opens its mouth to chomp down on her. Tibby, make an athletics check opposed with the crab's attack.
What are you doing?
26.
Tibby rockets into the creature's mouth, stopping before she is swallowed, right in the crab creature's throat.
You're soft in here, huh?
With her blade in hand, the fire around it erupts as she places a curse on this giant creature.
The crab's mouth fills with pink light. As the fire moves behind Tibby's eyes, there is a flash and a magical curse settles into the crab's body, making it more susceptible to Tibby's attacks.
Tibby makes 3 strikes with her blade. 14, 30, 24.
At first, the crab pitches around, sending you off balance, though you hold yourself in place within the creature's maw. Then you steady yourself, and 2 strikes land.
After the first strike lands, Tibby pulls back her sword, gathering more energy to the blade. The pink flames increase in size and heat. She swings it down, attacking with more force. She deals 51 damage.
And because Tibby attacks from within, the crab's defenses are useless, and the damage is not reduced in any way. Every time Tibby strikes the creature, a flash of pink light emanates from within the crab's mouth as the curse takes hold.
That's our lunatic.
As the crab panics with Tibby inside of its mouth, it shifts forward 20 feet.
Standing in the muck as the crab approaches him, Flintbeak starts pounding his fist rhythmically into the water in time with the crab's steps, the song escaping his beak before he even knows he's singing.
Yo-ho, and it's gone to scat, but we won't die fat, but we won't die lazy. Yo-ho, and it's turned to guff. Do we say enough? No, it's then we raise the colours high and fight for the ones who have fallen. And if we die having put our all in. Let us leave no doubt when our shots ring out and our cannons cut the skies. That all our days we raise the colours high.
The lightning-tinged blood coursing through Flintbeak's body continues to surge, hastening his heartbeat and quickening his actions. Springing to his feet and taking to the air, Flintbeak is off like a shot, grabbing a final potion from his belt and downing it, making him immune to the restrained and grappled conditions.
Tibby, from within the crab's mouth, you see its jaws clamp down hard. You are caught in gnarled, barbarous teeth and take 37 piercing damage, reduced by 3 because of your heavy armor proficiency to 34.
As Tibby is clenched between this creature's jaws, a protective pink fiery force field erupts around her body, lessening the damage she takes.
Tibby takes only 22 piercing damage, bringing her down to 142 points of health. As the crab bites down on Tibby, there is a bursting of fire that erupts from Tibby's body, and the crab takes 9 fire damage. Tibby then feels, as she is clenched down in the monster's mouth, muscles move to funnel Tibby towards the back, and it attempts to swallow her. Tibby, you go down this thing's gullet like a water slide. With Tibby now no longer an issue, the crab turns, and as it lumbers after a fleeing Celestyna, a massive claw sweeps through the treetops and descends upon her. Celestyna, you take 31 points of piercing damage, and you are grappled as the claw closes around you. You are additionally restrained and brought down to 132 points of health. But Celestyna, as this crab moves adjacent to you to grab you with its claw, you are able to retaliate.
As Celestyna runs, she sees the claw coming at her in her periphery, and she goes to skewer it with her harpoon. 28.
The harpoon pierces into the crab's shell. Roll damage.
7.
Celestyna is picked up into the air, where dark bubbles gather at the crab's mouth, and it spits an Icarus spear directly at her with advantage. Celestyna, you take 32 piercing damage and 15 poison damage, bringing you down to 85 points of health. Make a Constitution saving throw.
9.
Poison courses through your body, and you feel your muscles seize. Celestyna becomes paralyzed. And then, right as you feel even your lungs begin to seize up, the cream that you had applied to your fur only about an hour previous also seeps into your bloodstream, and instantly the paralysis is shocked out of your system.
Thank you, little albatross. Celestyna wrings herself free from the clutches of the crab and runs up its spiny claw towards its vulnerable head.
Celestyna effortlessly breaks the grapple, having been in this position many times before. Make an athletics check as you sprint up the crab's arm.
24.
The crab lifts its claw to try to throw Celestyna off, which you simply slide down and effortlessly leap onto the crab's head, landing deftly, standing above it.
Tibby, I'm coming to visit. And Celestyna wields her harpoon, attempting to stab the crab directly through the head.
Roll your attacks with advantage.
23, 27, 29.
3 hits. Roll damage.
40 damage.
A massive claw comes swinging at Celestyna suddenly. You take 26 bludgeoning damage, bringing you down to 59 points of health, but are able to sidestep the attempt to scoop you up in its claws and fling you. Tibby, as you finally slide down into the main pocket of this creature's stomach, you are suddenly engulfed in acid. You take 50 points of acid damage, bringing you down to 92 points of health.
As the acid burns Tibby's skin, her eyes narrow as she focuses her mind and propels her body back up through the esophagus that had just swallowed her.
Tibby shoots back up into the rear of the crab's mouth.
That hurt.
As Tibby lands in the mouth, she makes 3 more attacks with her flame-covered blade. 25, 15, 21.
1 hit, 2 misses. The crab jostles you roughly inside of its mouth.
34 damage.
Tibby, the muscles in the mouth move to swallow you once again.
As she begins tumbling down into the creature's stomach, Tibby casts shield on herself to stop her from falling.
And Tibby remains in the creature's mouth.
A ways away, moving as quickly as he can over the grassland between the two rivers, Flintbeak summons all of his aerial alacrity and pushes himself even faster. Flying now at a speed of 55 feet per second, Flintbeak darts past the tree line onto another sludgy lake, looking for any signs of the footsteps he saw earlier or what they might lead to.
They lead to an enormous wooden facility with a beaten, abandoned-looking dock, significant damage to the roof, no visible boats, carriages, or any other kind of transportation, and a river of black sludge spilling out the front door. The black water's origin seems to follow a path inside.
Without hesitating, Flintbeak makes for the door, flying as quickly as he can.
Flintbeak, as you dart within the front door, black sludge is slowly moving as if on a conveyor belt, out the front and into the lake. Roll a perception check.
Nat 20.
Your eyes immediately flick to an enormous machine in the center of this room. A long, austere-looking drill, from which the black water is bubbling up, frothing before it settles and continues with the current. On a desk that is not quite submerged by the black liquid, there are filthy, scattered papers, as well as a sort of thumbtack board absolutely covered in scientific diagrams, some of which appear mechanical, others appear biological. Flintbeak, make a history check with advantage as you use your grim ability to recall information about a location's tragic past.
Nat 20.
Flintbeak settles on a rafter, observing everything below him, and then he feels the static energy in the air, the remnants of shifting, frantic movement, a struggle on the floor, a creature being restrained against its will and brutally tortured and experimented on, and then a growing of sorts. Many attempts to flee, all of which are completely futile, and a barrier holding the black water back, destroyed, allowing it to pour forth into the river. Flintbeak, with this Nat 20 history check to determine the tragic nature of this place, you feel a tingling that more answers still might be found with a higher point of view. How urgent this information is, you are unsure. All of this takes place in a flash.
Wiping tears away from his eyes onto his ragged uniform before they can fully form, Flintbeak bursts through the door, flying himself 40 feet out over the dark water before changing trajectory and shooting 70 feet straight up into the air.
And as you ascend, Flintbeak, suddenly 2 black spears fire through the air towards you. Both miss. Meanwhile, the crab focuses its claws on Celestyna, at disadvantage. You take 32 points of piercing damage. You are grabbed in this thing's claws, and then it hurls you 150 feet down into the ground. Roll a dexterity saving throw.
11.
Celestyna, the creature throws you perfectly in a gap of trees, and you impact in the dirt, taking an additional 52 points of damage. Celestyna is at 0 health points. Celestyna, make a death saving throw.
13.
1 success. Celestyna's eyes flutter.
Tibby, with glee in her eyes, swings her sword wildly. 22, 23, 21.
2 hits, 1 miss.
52 damage.
Hit!
Once again, Tibby, the creature tries to swallow you down into its stomach. Tibby begins to move into the stomach once again.
Tibby does the same thing she did before. She calls up a shield to keep her in place.
Flintbeak, you have emerged from the trees and see the surrounding bowl of the island around you. Make another history check to determine the origin of this place.
14.
You must go higher to be able to determine anything more clearly.
Flapping hard, Flintbeak climbs higher.
Electricity spirals behind Flintbeak as he shoots up into the sky. Make another history check.
18.
This strange bowl-shaped island is truly a marvel, but unfortunately, you determine that you will need more height to be able to see exactly what your instincts are driving you towards.
Straining the muscles in his wings, Flintbeak climbs another 100 feet into the air.
Make one more history check.
24.
You stare down into the bowl and see that the entire island forms this bowl shape at a sort of pitched angle, implying that surely there must have been a great explosion here. And then as you gaze out into the ocean and see the black water spanning out in all directions, rippling and frothing against sandbars that have formed in the ocean, you see this island for what it is. The much smaller epicenter of some sort of immense impact.
By the feathers in my sweet derriere. Letting his wings go slack, Flintbeak begins to free fall through the air back towards the ground.
Make an acrobatics check.
Dirty 20.
Just before hitting the ground, Flintbeak's wings extend and he swoops up.
Stopping just feet above the ground, Flintbeak tears over the grass, headed towards the prone Celestyna.
Meanwhile, the crab continues to struggle with Tibby in its mouth and attempts to swallow her yet again. It is unable to swallow her on its first attempt, and then a claw pokes into its mouth and tries to shove Tibby in, and succeeds in shoving Tibby down into its mouth, swallowing her. And then makes for Flintbeak.
Digging his taloned foot into the ground right beside her, Flintbeak slides to a stop and attempts to resuscitate Celestyna.
Make a medicine check.
11.
Celestyna is stabilized.
Seems like you guys have been having some fun over here without me.
Celestyna, you are unable to move or speak, but your eyes weakly flutter open as you see Flintbeak standing over you. The crab begins stomping towards you. Flintbeak, 2 ichor spears fire towards you, but both spears are knocked aside by the static field rippling around your form. Tibby, once again, you are dunked into a pool of acid, tumbling over yourself. You take 42 points of acid damage. Right before you impact on the acid, a protective magical field burns around you, evaporating the first contact with it, and reducing the damage by 13 points. You take 29 points of acid damage, bringing you down to 63 points of health.
Tibby focuses and feels a second wind rush through her body as she recovers 16 health points.
Tibby is brought to 79 points of health. Tibby makes 3 attacks at disadvantage.
16, 24, 28.
2 hits. Roll damage.
She deals 50 damage with her 2 strikes.
The crab suddenly burps as pink light flashes from within its mouth and makes a Constitution saving throw to try not to puke Tibby out. And with a 29, succeeds, keeping its mouth firmly shut. In retaliation, furious at the very upset stomach it currently has, the crab lashes out at Flintbeak. Flintbeak, you take an unknown amount of piercing damage, though your concoction, increasing the oil produced by your wings, allows you to slip out of the claws effortlessly, and you are not grappled. However, another claw comes slamming down on top of you, and this one impacts in the dirt as you dart to the side. Tibby, still trapped within the acid, takes an additional 44 points of acid damage. Once again, that protective barrier bursts into fire around you, and you reduce that damage. You only take 34 points of damage, bringing you down to 45 points of health.
Kneeling over Celestyna's prone body, Flintbeak starts rubbing his feathers together, supercharging the electricity between them. Never tried this? Really hoping it works. And he pushes his feathers down onto her chest, attempting to shock her back into health as electricity courses through his own body.
As you attempt to alter the original purpose for this spell, make an Arcana check.
Nat 20.
Flintbeak.
Celestyna has 1 health point.
You.
Get back to it, love. It's time we got the rest of the crew together. And grabbing the bottle at her side, Flintbeak makes towards the water.
And sees Captain Brand with his head having just emerged from the water, sputtering for air, crawling completely covered in sludge.
As Flintbeak makes his way over the water and eyes Brand, he uncorks the bottle at his side. I always knew I was made for a life at sea. Mr. Taggish, you're needed on the bow.
With a pop, the cork opens. Misty green gas begins to form across the black water's surface, and after a few seconds, there materializes a ghostly green ship. As formless ghosts stand straight, with various tortured countenances, standing at his full surprising height, behind the helm is a familiar face.
Formed from a sort of mismatched jigsaw puzzle of ash floating on a watery surface is Snag Taggish. Resting on his undulating shoulder is Merdina in a similar shape.
Flintbeak, the joy of seeing your ally at the helm is cut short, as while flying above the surface of the now formed longship, water suddenly springs forth from your mouth, salty and briny, and you collapse, slamming hard down into the deck. More and more water comes as you retch.
Snag floats over to him, bends down, and holds his wing in his hand. No, lad. It'll be over soon.
And Flintbeak drowns and goes still.
Snag stands up from Flintbeak's corpse and slowly turns his head towards Brand, floating to the bow of the ship. He moves his ghostly beaded hands into a point in Brand's direction and begins to hex him.
Slur the speech which ye forgot. Tie their tongue up in a knot. Blither, blabber, dry ink well. No words left to speak the spell.
Brand, make a charisma saving throw. As Brand begins to shout, with his head protruding from the black water as well as his shoulders, suddenly more black water begins to spill over his chin. As the hex takes effect, and Brand, coughing and sputtering, is unable to speak coherently.
Snag then brings both hooved hands together and slowly pulls them apart, expanding the water in Brand's mouth into a 30-foot aquarium sphere.
And Brand's silhouette is all that can be seen within a gray, murky orb of water and black water mixed together. Meanwhile, Celestyna, as you lay on the ground, the crab gathers up black bubbles within its mouth and spits another spear at you. You scramble to your feet, just about to run, and then a spear slams into your back, impaling you into the ground, and you lose consciousness immediately. And the crab makes a predatory move over to Celestyna's body with a hungry gurgle. Celestyna, make a death saving throw.
13.
1 success. Celestyna's breathing, while faint, is still constant. Brand, make a constitution saving throw. Water begins to pour into Brand's mouth. His hands go to his throat, and he is stunned as he begins to choke and descend deeper into the black sludge that still pulls him down greedily like poisonous quicksand. Another spear rockets towards the deck, aiming for Snag. Botch, with a severity of 94%. As the crab turns to face the ghost ship, the pink light flashing within it as Tibby goes nuts. A black spear gathers at the crab's lips and fires towards the ship. Snag raises a hand, and so too do 5 or 6 other ghostly spellcasters. The spear stops midair and rockets back into the crab's front left leg, which shatters on impact. The crab lurches forward, painfully slamming into the dirt and falling 150 feet prone. The crab takes 48 damage from the devastating rebounded spear and an additional 37 damage from its impact in the earth. This crab, groaning, is clearly bloodied. Tibby, within this creature's stomach, you feel another hard impact underneath you as the acid sloshes around you. The roiling fiery energy reduces this damage that you take, rendering it at only 26 points. You are brought down to 18 points of health.
Tibby desperately attacks with her sword. 21, dirty 20, 24.
1 hit, 2 misses.
20 damage. Focusing hard, Tibby taps into her oxalotl body and regenerates a few hit points back.
Tibby is brought up to 25 points of health. Flintbeak. With a gasp, your eyes open.
Welcome back to the land of the... Well, not exactly the land of the living now, is it, Captain?
Flintbeak, finding your vestments and your feathers suffused with salty water, the electricity flowing through you from the suppressor still intact on the back of your neck, causes you to constantly arc with electricity as your conductivity has increased. All of Flintbeak's lightning damage will be maximized.
Flintbeak stands to his full height, flies quickly from the boat to the shore, and walking straight up to the fallen beast, pulls Silverthorn from his hip. The gun crackles with electricity. He points it directly against the crab's underbelly and fires 2 shots. 10, 14.
Both bullets ricochet at close range off of the crab's carapace.
All right, love. Who is hungry?
The crab, still prone, attempts to scoop Flintbeak up with a claw that comes from above. The claw looks like it is about to completely engulf Flintbeak, and then as it clamps down,
it meets the pulsing electric shield, which once again reverberates out from Flintbeak's body, protecting him.
The crab recoils.
Snag turns and levels a shaky finger at the crab, attempting to curse it.
The air wavers, the crab twitches, and then roars, dispelling the energy between Snag and itself. In retaliation, the crab, gathering liquid up at its mouth, spits a spear towards the ghostly Snag. It passes through him, and instead slams into the side of the boat, creating a ghostly fractal image as the deck appears to blast apart and then freeze in space. Snag, sharing a pool of hit points with the boat itself, takes 22 damage, bringing it down to 110 points of integrity.
Snag watches Bran's hand struggle in the sphere of water and cackles to himself, extending the hex.
Celestyna, make a death saving throw.
14.
2 successes. Celestyna grips the spear that impales her, sticking her to the forest floor. Bran's hand suddenly flinches, goes limp, and descends beneath the black water as he drowns. There's a beat. A misty green light, like a drop of water, suddenly emerges from the opaque, sludgy surface, and then suddenly shoots towards the flask that Flintbeak holds in his hand. And the boat is repaired 10 points of structural integrity, bringing it up to 120. A ghostly light at the very tip of the bow suddenly begins to pulse. And Tibby, from within the massive crustacean, you find yourself unable to wrest yourself from the acid. Though you are submerged, the rosy flames still try to burn as much acid away as possible, reducing the damage by 13 points, which means Tibby takes 18 points of acid damage, bringing you down to 7 points of health.
Submerged in acid, Tibby grins. Terror fills her body, but with it comes excitement. She can't can't wait to see what happens next.
Make 3 attacks with disadvantage.
22, 13, 28.
2 hits.
Fighting for her life to get out of this acidic stomach, her 2 strikes deal 50 damage.
As 50 hit points is the threshold for the crab to try not to vomit, it will now make a Constitution saving throw. Tibby is unable to find her way out. Meanwhile, another claw attempts to pick Flintbeak up off the ground. Flintbeak, the claw clamps down on you in what must be a grievous wound that you cannot feel. You are grappled by the strong black barbs.
Restrained within the crab's claw, Flintbeak yells over his shoulder back towards Snag.
Say, Sea Witch, I'm going to need that little moth of yours.
And you've got her, Captain.
When I go down, you put her somewhere I can see her.
Turning his attention back to the crab, Flintbeak levels his pistol.
All right then, love. Let's clear some of these teeth.
As Flintbeak lines up his shot, he starts to whistle to himself. And Flintbeak shoots towards the crab's mouth. 15.
A ricochet, the bullet goes wide.
21.
And this bullet vaporizes as it makes contact with some gathering black bubbles that harden into a spear and fire out once again towards Snag. The spear goes wide, splashing into the water as Snag simply steps to his left.
Snag points his finger once again at the crab
Open wide.
and casts Power Word Stun again.
Power Word Stun is useless if targeting a creature with over 150 points of health. The Dread Crab has fewer and seizes up and becomes stunned. The crab opens its mouth, roaring as a stunning effect racks its brain, and the black liquid, creating a solid carapace around it, seems to liquefy for a moment and roil aggressively as it then reforms differently to the crab's carapace. As it roars, Flintbeak, you see a faint, rosy glow coming from deep within the crab.
With a wave of his ashen hand, Snag sends Merdina to move incorporeally into the beast's mouth and blink with an ethereal glow.
The crab breaks the stunning effect, but its turn is over. Celestyna, make a death saving throw.
15.
Celestyna, in an unconscious movement of pure adrenaline, tears herself off of the spear and flops down into the dirt, unconscious but stable, as she clutches the wound in her shoulder. Tibby, still in the stomach of the crab and surrounded by a protective energy field, takes acid damage once again. Tibby, as she falls back into the acid after her frantic onslaught, she takes 48 points of damage and begins to burn, unconscious in the stomach acid. She will begin making death saving throws. Something begins to happen to Tibby, deep within the stomach of this creature. Her scales begin to burn away, and as they do, a stony, crusty carapace underneath starts to get revealed. Unconscious, Tibby twitches like a developing baby.
Breaking free in the moment of stun, Flintbeak makes a mad dive for the creature's mouth.
Make an acrobatics check as it attempts to bite down as you dive inside.
25.
Flintbeak shoots into the creature's gullet, slides down the esophagus, and sees plate armor floating within acid as you stop yourself short before falling into it.
Resting one hand on the unconscious Tibby. Come on, psychopath. We need you out there. He looks up towards the glowing Merdina.
Merdina blinks into being, glowing with a turquoise light, and provides you with the tiniest line of sight into the crab's mouth.
That's a boy, Snag. And the two of them lightning step up into the crab's mouth. 18 lightning damage.
With a flash, Flintbeak and an unconscious Tibby are in the creature's mouth.
Shoving Tibby out of the crab's mouth, Flintbeak quickly follows, flying in a wide arc around it towards Celestyna.
As soon as you exit the creature's mouth, it fires a spear after you, wildly missing.
Snag lets out an ethereal whistle, directing Merdina to land atop the unconscious Tibby. Several ghostly needles with threads connected to Merdina's wings, float down and begin to stitch Tibby's wounds in a sort of flawed reconstruction, healing her for 39 points of health, but lowering her hit point maximum by 39 points, as the wounds scar across her body.
Tibby, rising off the ground borne aloft ghostly strings, stands upright. Enraged and in dire straits, the crab uses its claws to stand to its full, massive height and fires 2 ichor spears, one at Merdina, evaporating her in place as the spear is perfectly on target, and the second towards Flintbeak. This spear rockets over Flintbeak's shoulder. Upon this miss, the crab lurches out, attempting to grab Flintbeak with one of its claws.
The electromagnetic shield pops up and deflects the claw.
And then a second claw, trying once again to bypass the static shield, shoots forward. And this claw also comes up on static and is repelled.
I'm sorry, darling, but I'm hoping your suffering comes to an end real soon.
Tibby, make an insight check.
16.
Tibby, you go to laugh, and what comes out instead is more of a throaty screech. The wings seem to grow on Tibby's back. She is wreathed in rosy fire. Tibby, as you fire upward through the air, underneath the crab, spiraling around its leg, your eyes glow bright pink. Your face, where it's been stitched to hide the damage the acid has done, suddenly comes unwoven, and a small part of your face flakes away, lost in the wind. You feel hunger, rage, a desire to dominate, and a desire to retain all power. This crab is no longer a threat to you. It is prey.
Tibby takes a deep breath, refocusing some of her psionic energy before she goes to make 3 slashing attacks up this creature's leg. 29. 30, which on a natural 19 is a crit. Dirty 20.
2 hits are successful, one of which streaks up the length of one of the crab's legs.
53 damage.
The crab reels from this vicious attack and attempts to slam Tibby into the dirt. Tibby, you take 24 points of damage, bringing you down to 15 points of health, and you are grappled, snatched out of the air.
Seeing the arcane stitching done on Tibby, and feeling the new witch-like powers within himself, Flintbeak bends over Celestyna and starts to mend her wounds, using the same process of flawed reconstruction. Celestyna is restored to 7 hit points, and her maximum is reduced by the same amount.
A bald patch with a brutal-looking scar forms under Celestyna's clavicle.
Get up, big girl. We need you to finish this thing.
Okay, I'm here. And Celestyna slowly gets to her feet.
Flintbeak, you turn back to the crab, and another claw is on its way. Another severe wound, and you are grappled and lifted into the air with Tibby, both 100 feet off the ground.
Channeling the same magic he attempted when he first encountered this creature, Snag throws out both hooved hands, as if grabbing onto chains, and whips them outward towards the crab, attempting to hold the monster.
The chains wrap around the crab's legs, lock into place, perfectly effective, and then the crab lurches downward, shattering the chains with a roar and a shockwave, and uses a legendary resistance to succeed the save.
Assault!
The crab brings Flintbeak to its mouth, spiny teeth open, and bite down.
Snag's eyes flash, and he attempts to intrude on the creature's thoughts.
Another failure, but the crab, determined, burns its last legendary resistance to effectively bite down on Flintbeak.
The electric arcane shield pops up once again around Flintbeak's salt-ridden body, blocking the attack.
Flintbeak, wreathed in electricity, seems to get lodged in the crab's open mouth. It attempts to bite down again and shatters the shield. Flintbeak, you hear your own bones crunch within you as you tumble into the creature's mouth, still feeling no pain.
As the crab's leg swings wildly to attack Flintbeak, Celestyna responds in her sentinel attack, harpooning the leg of the crab. 23.
Hit. Roll damage.
10 damage.
2 more black spears shoot from the crab's lips at Snag. 2 hits, the ship sustains 47 points of damage.
Celestyna slings the harpoon over her back. Then her eyes glow a silvery blue, and whispering, "Snooze, Jidge," attempting to inflict wounds upon it.
Roll a spell attack.
24.
The divine energy pierces through the spiky black carapace. That is a hit.
40 necrotic damage.
Rotting energy begins to spiderweb crack into the crab's leg, but then the black carapace on top of the crab moves in such a way that it stems the crack. The crab is clearly resistant to necrotic damage, but will still take 20. Celestyna, make a nature check.
17.
Underneath the dark black slime that clings to the crab's legs, you see graying red shell of the crab's original color. It strikes you that this crab is not undead and therefore must still be alive somehow.
Celestyna sets off at a run away from the crab.
As you flee, the crab sees you, a claw darts out to hit you, and with a 32, connects. She is brought once again to 0 health points, is grappled, and is lifted into the air, being brought to the crab's mouth.
Tibby strikes out blindly with her sword. 22, natural 19, 16.
2 hits, one of which is a crit.
28 damage.
The crab reels back, black liquid pouring forth from its mouth in absolute death throes, its eyes moving from side to side. Not thinking clearly, it tries to throw Tibby at the ground. Tibby, make an acrobatics check to right yourself and take flight.
15.
Just before you hit the ground, you do a barrel roll, your wings flap out from either side, and you pick back up into the air. From within this crab, Flintbeak, you see acid start to burn your feathers away. While you cannot feel it, you recognize that this damage is catastrophic. Your heartbeat quickens.
Pulling upon the last reserves he has within him, and sparks dancing along his fingers, Flintbeak begins to emit the same pulse he used trying to lift Brand off of the boat as he levitates himself up out of the pool of acid in the stomach and through the esophagus of the crab.
Squelching amidst muscular walls, you get yourself to the crab's mouth, still blocked by scores of barbarous teeth.
Locked behind the teeth, Flintbeak sings his refrain once again.
Let us leave no doubt as our shots ring out and our cannons cut the skies.
A spear fires out of the crab's mouth towards Tibby, which she deftly dodges.
That all our days we raise the colors. Aye.
Snag, in a moment of desperation, the deeper wells of his magic having run dry, puts his hands together and shapes a long spear of water, and then twists his hands and it freezes. He reaches down and kisses the wrapped shells in his hand for luck and hurls the icicle at the creature. 24 to hit.
Hit. Roll damage.
20 damage.
The crab is resistant to cold damage, so this damage is reduced to 10. Snag, describe it.
At first, it appears that the icicle did nothing, having disappeared into the black slime of the crab's carapace. And then, as the light shifts, it catches on a barbarous, icy spear coming out of the upper back of its shell.
The crab stands there for a moment, swaying. Its claws go loose. Celestyna, unconscious, drops 150 feet, slamming into some tree branches and then falling limp on the ground, failing 1 death save automatically. Flintbeak, as the crab begins to fall backward, you gently levitate out of its open, limp mouth, hovering there, and the crab crashes into the earth and goes still.
Feeling at what seems to be death's door, Flintbeak quickly calls upon his new arcane magic and casts Spare the Dying on himself.
Flintbeak previously having failed 2 death saving throws, feels his heart rate slow just at the edge of bursting. Celestyna, make a death saving throw.
11.
That's a success. Celestyna weakly moves, failing to get to her feet.
Oh.
Tibby, you feel a sudden stiffness in your body, your wings flapping less efficiently. Make a survival check.
12.
You don't know what's happening. The world has gone a bit more blurry. As Tibby unsettlingly stumbles over to a tree stump, she slowly begins to lose consciousness, and Celestyna, weakly looking up, somewhere between complete blackout and awareness, sees that Tibby's eyes have some sort of film crusted over them, and the wings are curdling on her back, burning black and orange as if being held over a fire.
Snag swirls his hand up above him and conjures Merdina once more, before sending her out to stitch up Celestyna. She regains 17 points of health, and her hit point maximum is lowered by the same.
Another brutal scar forms up Celestyna's entire spine.
How many times am I going to die today?
I was gonna ask you the same question.
Oh, it's you.
Barely.
Flintbeak's beak appears bent and broken, and most of the feathers in his plumage have been torn out.
Let's see what we can do about that. And Celestyna weakly crawls over to Flintbeak and lays a paw upon him, whispering, Zdrowie, attempting to heal his wounds.
Flintbeak recovers 14 points of health, bringing him up to 14 points of health. Your eyes turn towards Tibby, who has now gone into a kind of fetal position. Her exterior has gone pale, milky white, and a soft, round, pink fire seems concentrated and burning at the center of her mass. Celestyna, make a nature check.
22.
Laying your hand on Tibby and feeling a strange absence of presence from her form. Moving your hand down to just above the roiling pink fire within her and feeling much more life there. You realize what is happening.
She is turning into a chrysalis. She is becoming that creature that made her this way. I wonder if there's anything I can do for her. Looking up at Flintbeak and then back down at Tibby, Celestyna again rests her paw upon her. Well, if nothing else, perhaps I can ease the suffering. And whispers, Lagwodzic. As soon as the word leaves her mouth, there's a small shimmer in the air. The shimmer manifests a translucent purple otter who comes over and lies down by Tibby's side, attempting to soothe her suffering.
As the glowing figure that looks an awful lot like the deceased Fletcher Finnegan embraces the cocoon, the fire dims a bit, and Tibby opens her crusted-over eyes.
Unable to move her head too much, Tibby's eyes strain to focus between the other crewmates, her friends, she might say. Feeling the soothing energy, Tibby tries to grin and says,
Tibby curls into herself, solidifying to the side of the tree, and slowly loses all sense of shape and becomes a pale white orb with a glowing fiery purple center, dimmed by numerous layers of chitin.
That butterfly is going to be a thing to behold. I agree.
What happened? Is everyone okay?
Flintbeak instinctively grabs at Celestyna's collar, pulling it back and looking for the brand on her skin.
What are you doing? Ah, what is it? Is it there?
Before your eyes, Flintbeak, the seal disappears, leaving unblemished skin behind.
Yeah, it's still there. I'm so sorry.
It is?
No, I'm kidding. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone.
You...
Celestyna looks around Flintbeak's back.
Yours is gone too. We are free.
Well, Flintbeak looks over at the ship. I think I'm only so free as it is.
Right, about that. Thank you for doing it.
Snag begins bringing the ghost ship alongshore to pick you up.
You know, it wasn't all for you, right? I figure if I am going to take out Dr. Primavera, it might be good to have a couple extra hands on board. Besides, I do believe there's a Captain Darkwater I made a promise about.
That's right, you did. Well, okay.
I think you're going to want to see what's going on at the bow. We've got a new crew member aboard. Hush now, this is my favorite part.
At the bow, forming out of ghostly green energy,
You see Wayland Brand, forever disheveled, covered in black sludge, perpetually dripping wet. A shattered pocket watch dangles between his fingers, his tongue eternally tied by a hex that will not leave him. As water spills from his mouth, he mutters to himself. 1, 2, 5. 1, 3, 2, 1. A count he will never finish.
Brand shuffles and takes a seat at the oars and rows while counting incorrectly to himself. Fenwick comes alongside Snag.
Look at you, glorious champions all. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. I love you, Snag.
Get your behoochie back to work, Dougherty! I tell you, you can address me.
Fenwick Dougherty darts back to his seat.
Hi, Taggish. Who's giving the orders aboard this ship now?
Aye, sir. Sorry, Captain Flintbeak, sir.
Celestyna climbs up onto the deck.
So who's first? Yours or mine?
Mine might take a little doing. Why don't we go get yours first? Say, Taggish, does ship have a name?
Never thought to name it myself. Always felt more like a curse.
Right then. I say we christen her. And moving to the bow of the ship, Flintbeak turns with a flourish and addresses the crew. All right, beasts and fowls of the Feathergill, sails up, tails high.
The ghostly ship slowly heaves itself down the blackened river, and as it does, disappearing around the corner, we linger in the dark lake. There's a little bit of a bubbling beneath. And then crawling deftly out of the blackened sludge pokes a small claw that heaves a 3-foot in diameter body out onto the shore. A dark, thickly covered crab watches the ghost ship leave and then descends back into the water.
I've a proposition for ye creatures on my killing floor, whose bones would soothe my children as they teethe. Ye can keep this grave to dig, or ye can join my hempen jig, where you'll be legendary ere ye live to breathe. So sails up, tails high, get down and let fly, legendary ere we live to breathe.
This has been a Hero Club production, produced by Nick Williams, George Primavera, and Jack Quaid, with associate producers Marty Abbe-Schneider and Dylan McCollum. Voice acting by George Primavera, Nick Williams, Caroline Lux, Lelia Symington, Gabe Greenspan, Dylan McCollum, Marty Abbe-Schneider, Chuck McCollum, and John Matteson. theme song composed and produced by Matthew McCollum and performed by Dylan McCollum. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod, Ben Doyle, and Matthew McCollum for their amazing music, Mage Hand Press for their genius D&D 5th edition homebrew, Marty Abbe-Schneider for his incredible artwork, and Ali Catanese, our hero. Follow us on Instagram at Hero Club Podcast, on Twitter at Hero Club Pod, on Twitch at twitch.tv/hero_club, and check out our website, heroclubpodcast.com. Thanks for listening to this season of Hero Club, Brand's Bargain. We love you all, and welcome to the club.
But you'll be legendary from the ocean to the aviary. Sails up, tails high, get down and let fly. Legendary, yeah, we live to breathe. Sails up, tails high, monster storm, look 'em in the eye. We're legendary, yeah, we live to breathe. Even Gills had better heed. Sails up, tails high, get down and let fly. Legendary, yeah, we live to breathe. Sails up, tails high, get down and let fly. Legendary, yeah, we live to breathe.
Deep in the forest, on an abandoned island, at the base of a tall tree, sits a glowing white egg. Purple fire roiling from within, growing brighter and brighter. Who knows how much time has passed? The trees do not betray their age, and this sole pinprick of light dominates the darkness, as there is a crack and a squelch as something flops onto grass, and in tandem, a screech pierces the air, and on the wind, matching it, a maniacal, high-pitched laugh.
Will me opening the bottle turn me into like a zombie?
Zombie?
A zombie? Will it make me a zombie?
Will I become a zombie?
Unfucking real, dude.
I'm a zombie, Boons!
Boons, I'm a zombie!
Let me oot your Boons, Boons!
Okay, I just don't want it to like doom me to be like the captain of an undead ship.
Might do that. It might do that.
It might literally do that.
Okay, great.
I don't know how much crap. Do that. It's just me choking.
Excuse me.
Whoa!
I think let me try this again.
So, George, my grim psychometry gives me advantage on, I know that you said investigation, not history, but I have advantage on history to recall information about the sinister or tragic history of an object or a current location.
Oh, what the fuck?
I forgot about that, yeah.
That is so insane.
It's Aragorn sense. It's Aragorn
That
sense.
100% applies.
Okay, so I'll do advantage on this one.
I got all these puka shells on my honeymoon, and I'm gonna do a creepy
Fuck
stuff.
yeah!
I'm so stoked.
Yeah, here we go. Let me just wrap them around my fingies so I get like a gross, shaky sound.
And is brought to 0 health points as she goes limp once again in the crab's junk.
Don't
As she
laugh
goes
through that,
limp
George.
once again, she's laughing. That's why I'm laughing. I feel horrible, but yeah, it sucks. She is once again. She is brought once again to 0.
This is the blooper.
No, it's not.
It's just George not getting
probably
able to
is,
say
though.
she's dead.
Flintbeak, previously having failed 2 death saving throws, feels his heart rate slow.
Whoa! Oh, shit!
Oh my god!
Let's go!
That was if you had fallen and taken damage, that would have killed you.
Wow.
Tibby tries to grin and says,
Oh, shit.
Man. Oh man, that's so real.